Hello,
Sorry.
and welcome to WXR. I'm your host, Chris, aka The Mole, and joining me is James Phoenix, Marcus Shadow, and Rick the Hammer. And we're going to be talking about intolerance in wrestling. And I believe it was said intolerance is itself a form of violence and an obstacle to the growth of a true democratic spirit. Mahatma Gandhi. But let's talk about intolerance in wrestling. Who would like to kick it off?
You.
Yeah, you.
Okay,
You're the host.
how about we talk about the fact we can count on one hand the amount of black champions we've had in WWE history, world champions. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think Ron Simmons, Mark Henry, The Rock, and that's all I can think of.
Booker T.
Booker T.
Not in WWE though.
Yeah, he was the
Yeah,
world
he was.
heavyweight champion in WWE.
Yeah, but I was on about WWE champion because I
Oh.
swear Mark Henry won the WWE championship at one point.
Okay, yeah.
No, he didn't. They made a point to mention that on TV that he has never held the WWE championship in his career, and he still hasn't.
That's the one
because they
title
didn't
he
give it
failed
to
to he's failed to capture.
Ah.
And Booker, when you opened the show, Chris, you said world title, so that's why.
Yeah, it's cool. But yeah, we can count Booker T. Why not? Booker T, let's say it's 4.
But if he won it 5 times, no, I'm just kidding.
Six times.
Actually,
He's
he won it 6 times. Because I think he won the WCW title 5
He
times.
doesn't
and the
have enough
WWE
fingers to
title
do
once.
his taunt then.
He did change it for a long time, but then he said the hell, and then he just went back to doing the other one.
Yeah,
But yeah,
but why is that the case? First of all, when we talk about race, why is it that the white wrestlers are always shoved down our throat a lot more than the black wrestlers are?
have you seen who runs the company?
Yes, but we're meant to be looking at why this intolerance happens, besides just making those types of comments. I was wondering why this intolerance happens, and do we feel it's time to move the fuck on?
Oh, it's been time to move the fuck on for a while. I think a big reason for this, and it's a reason. I feel it's a reason why it permeates through a lot of other mediums, not just wrestling, is because of the perception of what sells. And maybe it isn't just a perception; it might be more than the perception. It might also be somewhat of a reality based on what's accepted socially. The fact that while yes, as a race we have progressed, beyond what it was like, say, when WWE started as WWF, there's still that racial intolerance throughout the society. There's still preconceived notions of what is accepted and what isn't, and what sells and what doesn't, and what's seen as offensive and what's not. And because of that, you don't, people, companies like WWE are afraid to put the minority on the forefront, to make them the face, if you will. And I think it's valid, but at the same time, I think someone needs to step up and be like, okay, we're going to do this. It may kind of screw us for the first couple years, but we're going to have the balls to do this, and maybe it'll open some doors, and it'll break down some of those barriers that are still there, even though some people might be like, oh, those barriers aren't there. Why are people doing this? Well, it's because the barriers are still there, whether you see it or not, whether you choose to accept it or not, they are still there.
Yep. And I think, like I mentioned, we've had hardly any black champions. I don't think we've had any Asian champions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a case of, I don't understand why, because the preconceived notion of it's entertainment, everyone needs to do the big white guy. Like I'm going to use Cena and Daniel Bryan as an example of this right now because they're the faces. Put them all over the posters and stuff. Where, I'm sorry, if you want this to feel like a real sport, look at MMA, like UFC. They have like different races and shit all over their posters for the event, and the reason is because whichever one's the best should succeed. And I don't think at this point WWE would be breaking barriers like you mentioned. I don't think they'd be doing anything too outrageous or anything like that nowadays.
No.
Nowadays, the fact they're not doing it is almost just completely ass backwards. It's like it took Disney how long to do a Black Princess?
Right, but again, it's the perception of those in charge.
Yeah, which is
of that barrier and of what it would mean to the company. It's their perception of what we as the consumer would perceive their company to be or represent if they did this. I mean, basically it's the same reason why WWE doesn't give a shit about the Divas division. It's because, why should we put women at the forefront? They can't do anything. They belong in a kitchen. It's like, no, they have talent, but you're not showcasing it.
That's just chauvinism right there.
Hello, Queen of Hearts.
Hello, Queen of Hearts. Exactly. And it's like...
Women can do anything that men can do.
Except penis model.
Well, that, yes.
I was kidding. I'm one of the ones that have always said that I want the women's division in the wrestling to be improved. But yeah, that's one of the other ones where we got the intolerance. But it is obviously how they treat the divas, as they treat them as piss break matches and eye candy for whatever celebrity guest they've managed to churn out this week, who's desperate to cling on to their last ounce of fame.
Right.
But
I mean, it says it all. Well, when you've basically sung the praises of Emma while she was in NXT, and when they finally brought her to Raw, it's like she sucks balls. They're not showing her talent. They're basically making her a foil to Santino, which I think is the wrong thing to do.
Yep.
I'm hoping
the one I really liked in NXT, which was Paige. I'm hoping she does do well. I mean, she's had some good matches so far. The one she won the title was a complete fucking joke. But
yeah, she has to get over her nerves, I think, too. Is because you could tell she's kind of nervous out there, and I think the more she does it and the more she gets comfortable being in that kind of environment, I think she'll do better. Because you can see the talent there. It's just she's so nervous, and she's never really worked with any of these divas before, that she's still kind of feeling things out, and hopefully the fans and by extension WWE, like corporate and stuff, will be patient enough with her to let her, feel it out and gain that confidence to basically showcase the talent that she has.
Yep. Ironically, NXT is more forward than WWE is, even though it's the same company. They've had I think they had like an Asian champion. They've had a great women's division, and they've also had, I think at one point they had a woman on commentator.
It's because NXT isn't the flagship. It's not what they perceive to be what's representing WWE. When it comes to what's actually representing their company, there's the fear and stigma there.
I know, but I just find that really weird that you're telling these people, look, this is what you can be. This is where the organisation where we're going to see the future. And you're watching like, yes, this is very, this is very forward thinking. And then they get to the WWE and it's ass backwards. I'd be like if Richter was to say to, like, because as we all know, stay-at-home dad gamer, he has children. I'd be like if Richter said to his daughter, hey, honey, you could be anything you want. And she's like, oh, yeah, here you go. And buys her like a fire truck and stuff. And she's like, oh, cool, I'm going to be a firewoman. He's like, cool. Then when she's slightly older and she's now got the fireman stuff, he just throws it the fuck out and goes, no, put on a dress. He wouldn't do that, I hope.
Yeah.
I was expecting to say, what, again? But what does Jim and Richter think about intolerance at the moment with those two things, with the divas and that one? Divas and the race stuff.
Silence.
Jim? Rick?
I think I feel particularly bad for the divas of color. Because they're getting double screwed. But I think it's not only a matter of, well, I mean it's certainly a matter of discriminating against certain people. But I think it's also a matter of the people that tend to gravitate towards the particular sport. I mean, even in the amateur leagues and whatnot, there's not exactly that many black wrestlers or Hispanic wrestlers or whatnot. I think there's more Hispanic wrestlers than black wrestlers even. And unfortunately, it's because it's the reason there's not that many in WWE in places like that is because there's not that many to choose from. I don't know if that's just because they're not encouraged to go into the field, or if it's because it's just that, men of color of that particular, size and build tend to go more into bodybuilding or into football or into other sports. I don't know.
Yeah, but, I could agree with that. If you look at other independent wrestling groups and stuff, hardly see any people of color. It's like I was watching New Japan Pro Wrestling, not a single Asian guy.
Hilarious. That's because that would be old Japan Pro Wrestling. Anyway.
I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah.
So that also goes into what you were saying, like in Japan, in the Japanese one, there's hardly any black or white people.
Yeah, exactly. It's a matter of what do people gravitate toward, and unfortunately, in all fairness to I mean, guys like Booker T and Mark Henry, but when you're talking about or when companies think get some guys going into wrestling, when they thinking about okay, we're gonna bring in some colored guys to wrestling, and your example is fucking New Jack, yeah, not exactly positive.
That's like saying white people can't get into the business because your role model's Jeff Hardy.
Ouch. But I would also like to point out...
Don't you mean Willow?
There you go. I would also like to point out, I think it's easier for non-Americans or non-white people to get into something like WWE than it would be for an American, white guy to get into like New Japan Pro Wrestling simply because of the language barrier. Because, like especially today, English is becoming more and more the international language of business. So, like a larger percentage of the world than people would think actually know English or require their citizens to take English in their school and stuff. Whereas, how many white Americans actually know Japanese that can wrestle?
Tensai.
Yeah.
Well, he's lived there.
I'm gonna say not that many, but there's also a load of people in the WWE that don't speak English. Like
this is true.
And they had
not at all.
Great Khali.
Well, then that's true. But I'm just saying it's easier because
Ultimate
English
Warrior.
is a more widely accepted and known language. What?
You was listening to people who didn't speak English. You mentioned Ultimate Warrior.
No, he speaks Destrucity. I thought you knew that.
Yeah, I think part of it as well could be sort of what Jim hit on the head as well. I think black people are the ones that suffer, or African Americans, if you want to be overly politically correct, but they don't mind being called black people. They don't mind being called black people. Like, I don't mind being called white person when I'm not Caucasian, so I don't care. But you've got the New Japan Wrestling for the Asian people and stuff like that, where they got a big Asian demographic there. They got a certain style which is more for their liking. The Mexican or Hispanics have like the Lucha Libre styles and that bear, which isn't incorporated in there. Which, okay, fair enough, they all have their own styles like that. The ones that suffer, I think, are the black people, because there's no black style of wrestling, if that makes sense. There's no, like, African pro wrestling or something, I don't think. There might be. But there's nothing like that. But, I don't know. What do you think, Rick?
I don't think there is.
I'm not about that, I'm about intolerance.
No, it's like, I think there's like a Samoan wrestling probably, or something like in the Caribbean where
more likely than not,
dark skin, African Caribbeans or Black Caribbeans.
Well, isn't there like a Cuban one? Because isn't that where like
probably
got to start?
Yeah.
Aren't everyone in the Caribbean white? I mean, I was watching Pirates of the Caribbean.
Just the tourists.
White. It's
just the tourists and the dead people.
Yeah, like I said, Pirates of the Caribbean, they all looked white.
Also, and that's what I thought. I'd like to make a point. I mentioned earlier. Somebody mentioned, I believe Marcus, you mentioned about the language barrier in New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to point out alumni of that have at some point or another wrestled for New Japan Pro Wrestling include, among others, Andre the Giant, Kurt Angle, Stone Cold, Jericho, Chyna, Ric Flair.
Thank you, Wikipedia.
Yeah, pretty much.
I didn't say there weren't people who went over there. I'm just saying I think that's why you don't see as many people from like here or other places going to Japan to wrestle, and you see more going from everywhere else coming here because it's easier to make that transition.
Really, how many Japanese wrestlers have we had in the company? We had Kai and Tai, Tajiri. I mean, how many Asians have there really been? Come on.
Yoshitatsu, Masato Tanaka, that chick in TNA. I can't remember her name.
Gail Kim.
Yeah.
Gail Kim's Korean.
Who the hell is Masato Tanaka?
Masato Tanaka.
Yeah,
you've never watched ECW, have you?
No, I haven't.
He was the baddest Asian wrestler I've ever seen. That dude was a fucking tank. Oh my god.
I don't know.
And like I said, yeah, there hasn't been that many in R1s either, which is true. But
yeah,
I will also address while we're here, like I mentioned, it's not just the race thing; it's also how they're treating the women and stuff. But I'm also going to point out one which may be a little bit controversial because no one's seems to have touched upon this much recently. But what the fuck was WWE thinking with Darren Young? The guy comes out the closet. He's the first wrestler, apparently. I'm saying apparently because I don't know if there has actually been others in like smaller ones, but he's the first one to come out the closet and say, "Hey, look, I'm gay." And what happens to him? His tag team partner turns on him, and the tag team partner it looks like they're pushing, and they completely buried the gay guy after they milked that cash cow a bit.
Mo. That's actually the idea was they were turning it, they were putting it into a feud, and then the gay guy got injured.
Yeah, but
that's why they can't push him because he's not there.
Yeah, but you even read reports and stuff of during their feud. Everyone was like, "Ooh, it's Titus O'Neil. Look at what Titus O'Neil can do." Even during their feud, everyone was impressed with Titus O'Neil. He was the one getting more dominance in their feud, and it seemed like because Darren Young was of the homosexual variety, they just swept him under the rug.
Yeah, I think that's a valid perception because you do make a good point. And also, if you noticed during that time when Titus O'Neil did the heel turn, yeah, who was getting mentioned by the commentators? Who were the commentators impressed with? Yeah, that's right, it was Titus O'Neil. They never mentioned Darren Young.
True, but
they just mentioned him as the guy getting his ass kicked by Titus O'Neil.
And also, WWE also did the thing of they were so afraid that because he was gay, his stereotype or whatever may hurt their business. The second he came out and admitted he was gay, suddenly their attire swapped from pink to blue. Like they were afraid having a gay guy in pink would give the wrong message of what their company represents. No.
I'd also like to make a valid point here, and you can make this.
It's the first time for everything.
Yeah, shut up. The primetime players weren't exactly going anywhere beforehand, and I think that I wouldn't say Titus is any good either. I don't think the reason Darren Young was getting buried has anything to do with him being gay. I think he's getting buried because he sucks.
I'd say it wasn't, because if you look at the timing, they were a tag team. He comes out the closet, and suddenly that's when they split them up.
Yeah, they were really good as a tag team, too. They were getting pushes. They were getting title shots. It's like, I think they were on tap to become champions, and then he comes out as gay, and boom, no, you're not going to become champions.
Yeah, then they completely buried them lower than they have the Usos, which is also stupid as the Usos. Another tag team of race, and they're treated as worse than most of the tag teams they throw together are two white guys that just happen to put together that week. What the fuck?
Yeah, and it's not like the Samoans don't have a long history in wrestling of all varieties.
Yeah, they do. The Samoans do, but at the same time, while the Samoans do have that heritage, it's also been extremely racist too. Because look at the history of the Samoan people. Besides, like maybe The Rock, besides him, even the Usos tried to address it when they first won TV. Of we're not going to be the tribal people you're used to. We're not going to be the tribal people you always make the Samoans be represented as. And within a year, they're fucking wearing the tribal mayhem acts and do that. Then they come out and it's like, oh my god, you've turned them into a stereotype. Like, look at Umaga. Look at what they did to him. Suddenly, he went from being in 3-minute warning, again, hand gesture. But he was in 3-minute warning, then suddenly he's Umaga, can't speak English, like, on a tribal thing. It's like, what the hell? Ironically, TNA's more progressive of that, because I think Samoa Joe is Asian, or not Asian, is Samoa, or has some sort of race in him, and they treat him like an actual person, not a racial stereotype.
Yeah.
True.
It's like Tamina, Samoan, awesome wrestler. Tamina, in terms of the women's division, Tamina's pretty damn good, and for most of the time, they've relegated her into not appearing, jobbing her out, or being a manager to AJ. Now it looks like they might possibly push her now, but even now she's against Paige, which, like I said, Paige is really good, and they don't have a problem with this. But it looks like they're going to job Tamina to Paige and stuff like that. But when the fuck are they going to let Tamina have a spotlight?
About the same time, they're going to let Natalya have her spotlight.
Pretty much.
But I would just like to say, I was thinking about it. You asked earlier in this podcast, Mole, or not asked, but we were talking about NXT v, Raw and SmackDown and stuff. And I think a lot of it comes down to who books the shows and how the people are booked. Because I haven't actually watched NXT, but based on what you've said and based on what little things I've seen, it seems like the people who book the shows are different, maybe. But it seems like they book NXT more like an independent promotion instead of like a fucking big sports entertainment promotion. So when you take the NXT people out of what would be considered an independent promotion, you put them on Raw, and they have to deal with the Raw bookers who effing suck and have for years.
Yep.
They're not going to come across as very well because the Raw people don't know how to fucking book them, and they're looking at the independent stuff. They're like, yeah, we're not going to book it that way. That's not Raw booking. But it's like, but that's who they are. That's what got them to the dance, and you're going to take what got them to the dance and take it away just because what got them to the dance doesn't fit with the dance? No, fuck off.
See, I will say I'm going to give props and insults, but I'm going to give props to someone I don't normally give props to. I'm going to give props to Triple H.
Okay.
Apparently, from what everyone said, I don't know if it's true or not, but I'm going to assume it is. I've got no reason to doubt this. But a lot of the wrestlers have said NXT was Triple H's vision with what it's become now. And he had this idea to basically treat it like it was Raw or SmackDown or something, but do it on a smaller scale for more the independent people and stuff. Sort of like what they turned ECW into, but not shitting all over what the name was. And basically, it's a case of, yeah, he's done that. Triple H did that. He's helped NXT. And he's been very, like I said, forward-thinking with how he's booked NXT. And yet, he's the same guy in charge of Raw. Mind blown. But
yeah, no kidding.
But what does Richter think besides the fact that before I said, what do you think about this and not about the fact ECW did shit over what ECW's name was? Because I haven't no doubt otherwise going to be his fault. Yep, totally shit over the ECW name.
Well, I do think that there are definitely more non-white people in WWE than there probably are white people in any, like, Japan and probably Mexico and stuff. They definitely do have a long way to go, but I'm gonna think that it's probably because the upper management are older people, so they tend to have that old world mentality. So I'm gonna think that I don't know how much Triple H is better, just given, you know, how even if NXT was, you know, really his thing, maybe it's, I don't know why he has a dual personality then for that, but I'm not sure how much better to get with him. But if WWE continues, I imagine it'll just get better as it goes along for that, because as the mindset of the world starts to change, it'll be reflected where it's, you know, like for most things that, you know, it's, you know, we're sitting here and we're just like, why aren't they doing that? What are they doing? But Vince is like old, so he's probably like, oh, I don't know, and scared of change. But sad, it'll probably just take too long to get to the point where it should be at right now.
Yeah.
Well, if Triple H is the one that was the visionary for NXT, then yeah, props to him. And if that's the case, then the way I see it is the big reason why, like, Raw and SmackDown, the big flagship shows, aren't following Triple H's vision is because Triple H is being handcuffed by Vince McMahon. Because let's face it, at the end of the day, who actually runs Raw and SmackDown? Who makes the decisions? Who says yes or no? Who can tell Triple H, fuck off, you're not doing that?
It's an unknown intern named Tom. I'm sorry, was that not the answer?
No. But, and I think that goes into what Richter was saying about that those in charge have that old world mentality. Now, I'm sure, like, say, on the board of directors and stuff, there's probably some younger people. There's probably people who have gotten so old they've retired, whatnot. But at the end of the day, Vince McMahon is the one who gets to say what gets put on the air and what doesn't. He has the final say. He can come in and veto fucking anything he wants. And my guess is, if what Mole has heard is true, that Triple H is the one who put NXT together, it's probably because Vince doesn't give a shit. He's just like, yeah, that's your baby. You do whatever the fuck you want. That's not representing my company. Let's see what you could do. But for Raw and SmackDown, you do what I say, son.
Yeah, like I said, it was on one. It might have been on one of the I think it was on one of the documentaries from WWE. So, like I said, it could be true, it could not be. But like Triple H said, you see him there when it was first starting off and stuff. So, like I said, no reason to doubt it. But Triple H mentioned he put it together for the idea of helping the future and letting new stars shine and giving them and getting older wrestlers who see it and stuff to help give them advice and to mentor them to help them become what the WWE needs, because WWE needs to work on its future. Which that goes into exactly what Richter said about dual personality. WWE needs to work on its future. Evolution dominating Raw. In 2014. What the fuck? But yeah, I'll just say that's weird. But let's also talk about intolerance, which this one may be a little bad because I know I do this too, but I mainly do it for humor. How about intolerance of religion in WWE as well? Because I'm going to say intolerance of religion is because look at Shawn Michaels. Okay, I'm not. Vince took the piss out of it with the God and stuff, but once Shawn Michaels was a Christian, they mentioned what a good person he was. They mentioned how he has beliefs in Christianity and stuff, and they praised him for it. Muhammad Hassan is Muslim, or was meant to be Muslim, and they turn him into a terrorist. Does anyone see anything wrong with this here?
Well, didn't he want to be a heel? I don't remember.
Yeah,
I don't know if
think
that was true, but
I think the only problem with that was the timing of when they did it, because that's the whole reason why they had to pull him and basically fire him, which is kind of sad because he was actually really good and the gimmick was good, and it just kind of made me sad that because of the timing of it, because of what happened shortly after they unveiled the gimmick, that he basically got no push and basically is dead to the business. You know, it's like I kind of wish he'd have been able to stick around because I think he would have been pretty good.
Yeah, which part of it goes into what Muhammad Hassan, part of it would go into what Jim mentioned about the key demographics and people, is because, like I mentioned, when Muhammad Hassan was brought in, he was supposed to be face. They did the promos of, just because 9/11 happened, please don't treat all of us Muslims the same. I have a lot to give you people. I want to help you people. I want to help WWE become better. He was a nice guy. And what did the audience do? USA, USA, USA. So WWE was like, oh fuck, we have to make him a heel. And then it's USA every time he comes out. So like, oh, yeah, clearly we're onto something here. Let's make him so anti-American. He's a terrorist. What could go wrong?
Yeah, that is true. Part of it is the quote-unquote audience, and the audience is not getting any better.
Yeah, the audience still does that now. If you have two people who in the ring together and one of them's not American, chances are the crowd will chant USA, USA. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? Enjoy the wrestling. It's not a racial thing. It's not a country thing. It's like you didn't do this for. I'm glad they didn't. You didn't do this for Rey Mysterio. You cheer Rey Mysterio. He's not American. He's Mexican. Why are you doing this for every other person? It's like, no.
Because Mexico's on the North American continent, and to the ignorant masses of the United States, America is the entire continent, and U.S. owns all.
Yeah, but they also did it to Alberto and stuff like that before now of USA. It's like, no, stop this.
That's because they made him a heel, but yeah.
Yeah, but they still do that shit. It's like, they shouldn't.
It's also because Rey Mysterio doesn't really mention his Mexican heritage. The closest thing to it is the big-ass Mexico on his gut, but that's about it. He never says it. He just, okay, I have pride, but I'm not going to mention it. Whereas with Alberto Del Rio, when he comes out, one of the first things out of his mouth is that he's such a great Mexican and stuff. I mean, he's basically flaunting it. Yeah.
Well, that's because WWE books him that way. The reason is because WWE has realized that they have a very fast-growing Hispanic audience in all parts. In all parts of the country, and as a result, they want to have a large Hispanic star that audience can get behind and root for. That's why they brought in Sin Cara. Because they knew, okay, they had Rey Mysterio for many years, but he's getting old and can't do what he used to. So they brought in Sin Cara to kind of be that new guy, and also Del Rio. And when Sin Cara didn't work out, it kind of fell on Del Rio, so they tried to push him as the face with the big Mexican heritage. But that didn't work when you're in America, and you're trying to push the Mexican guy as the face against the dude claiming to be the real American.
Yep.
Yeah, but I mean, take a look at Muhammad Hassan, as Mole said. He came out and was like, don't judge Muslims because I'm Muslim, da-da-da-da. I think part of it is because he mentioned what he was. You take someone like Jinder Mahal. I don't think he's ever mentioned that he's like Indian or anything. I mean, you can kind of tell because of the name, but he never actually mentions it. all you do is you see his clothing. He came out in the turban and stuff, which is fair enough, but I don't think he's ever vocally mentioned it. And I think that's a big difference. If you vocally mention it, the crowd's going to react to that. But if you just come out and do your thing and let the crowd react to what you do and what you look like, I think you get a different reaction.
See, like I said, I say no, because even when Jinder Mahal debuted on SmackDown and stuff, when he was the heel, he was still a heel, but he debuted, he didn't mention it, but they were still USA, and that was even when he was...
Well, because he was a heel.
Yeah, but even when he was... when Khali was face, they've still done it to Khali before now. It's like, you shouldn't do this all the time.
That's true.
It seems like the idiot mentality, no offense to any wrestling fans out there listening, but it still seems like an idiot mentality of, you see two people fighting, wait, what can we chant? What can we chant? Oh, this guy's not from here. You're not from here. It's like, no, grow the fuck up.
I also get the feeling that the USA chant is one of those chants that WWE incites, because there's a handful of chants that WWE will incite the live audience to chant.
There is, but it's still like I said, the Divas division needs a lot of work as well. Ironically, though, the future does look promising, hopefully, because we've seen how they book NXT. That could be the future. And we've got a female doing backstage interviews now. That's kind of cool. Paige is now up. Hopefully that can improve the Divas division. And they've also brought up Emma and Summer Rae and stuff. That can hopefully help the Divas division. I think Big E Langston is probably on his way to WWE title at one point. As much as I don't like him, he's still on his way, and that's still a pretty big deal. And at least that I got hope that the future could improve, but I don't know about you guys on this one.
Actually, what I'd like to see, and it's probably never going to happen, now that they have Emma with Santino, I want to see Santino completely drop his gimmick. And I want to see Emma drop the gimmick, and I want to see them actually wrestle. Like, have Santino get into shape a little bit more, and have him go back to doing what he did when he debuted in the WWE. Now that he's with, a diva that can actually wrestle, it's like, promote them as a wrestling team, as a wrestling partnership. I think that'd be fucking awesome, because they both have the talent to do that. Because right now, the way it is, I'm sorry, Emma's fucking stupid. Yeah. The way they're portraying her, she's fucking stupid.
Yeah, Emma is fucking stupid. I'm hoping Emma drops the gimmick. Unfortunately, at this point, I hate to say it, I think it's too late for Santino. The only reason I say it's too late for Santino is how long they've given him the face, the overly goofy baby face thing, and how out of shape he's become, and how little he has to rely on wrestling. Because he was good when he first came in, but it's like Eugene. Look at Eugene when he first came into WWE. I'm sorry, Eugene was pretty damn good in his first match or two. And
Eugene was a fucking awesome wrestler from what I understood, but then when they gave him that stupid gimmick, it was a gimmick where he didn't wrestle, or he had to fake that he sucked. And I'm just like, no. Yeah, you don't take an awesome wrestler and say, you know what, go out there and suck. Yeah, really?
Basically, he had the gimmick of he was mentally challenged, and he was still able to do some decent matches. But then they started to push the mentally challenged thing more and more, and using him for comedy sketches and only comical purposes, and having heels job him out like they done to Santino, and they just squandered all the potential there. And even when he came back, he tried wrestling a bit on his return match. He wasn't as good, and unfortunately, I feel that's what they've done to Santino, which is a shame. That's a fucking shame.
Yeah. Unfortunately,
there needs to be a future there needs to be a future WXR squandered potential.
Didn't we do that on a previous one?
We did. We talked about squandered potential.
Yeah, because I remember we discussed like Santino and stuff as one of the big squandered potentials.
Yep.
I think I'm not sure if
I want to say it was the interviews.
Yeah, I think that may have been an interview question, or it may have been an interview, or it may have been one of the award shows or something like that.
Oh, it might have been my interview. Someone might have asked me that question of who do you? Was it Tiff that asked me that? Someone asked me who do you feel?
I think I asked you that. Who do you think has the squandered potential? Yeah, because it's been something I've been wondering with what people believe. But yeah, I do think that could be an actual whole WXR on that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But since we've talked about this a lot, did Jim and Richter have anything to add to this before? Because then we'll wrap it up.
The only thing, this is probably going to sound terrible, but I'm going to throw it out there. One thing that might change some of the perception of that stuff is a lot of times when, at least, some of the things I could think of, that sometimes when they have a, like, let's just say non-white wrestler, they come out and it's like the most stereotypical stuff they're wearing. So it like really sets them apart, where if you have, like when Santino first came out, he just looked like a dude. And so I think that even though they were in Italy and you knew he was Italian, it wasn't a bad thing because they treated him like a wrestler, where like Jinder Mahal, he comes out and he's got the turban and the coat, and it's like they just purposefully make him look different, so it kind of sets up in your head, maybe subconsciously, that this guy is not like the rest of them. He doesn't dress the same at the start. Does that make sense? Or
Raj makes perfect sense. That's exactly what I said about the Usos. When they first came in and they were in street clothes and stuff with "Don't treat us like a stereotype," they were kind of cool. Now, I still like them. It's just the stereotypeness. It makes me just facepalm. Not because I don't like the Samoan people or anything. It's just I don't like seeing the stereotypes. It's like when we've had people, when we had people from England as well, like William Regal. Obviously, he's kind of made a living doing that. But the whole, we're from England, we must be really posh. And now we got Wade Barrett, which is fucking awesome.
Mm-hmm. Well, even like when Rocky was first starting, or The Rock, when he was Rocky, and he had like the tooth necklace and the, like he looked ridiculous. But when he was The Rock, he just wore normal tights and the $800 shirts, and it.
Yeah, and it's like the Usos' father, Rikishi. He comes out in a fucking track pants and a tracksuit. He doesn't come out in fucking tribal stuff. Yeah, he wore the sumo wrestling thing, but wasn't that because he was actually a sumo wrestler before becoming a wrestler?
Possibly, yeah. But who? If you're not Rikishi, he was also in the Head Shrinkers, an overly stereotypical thing that came out eating fish at one point.
I didn't know that.
They were way with Haku, or who was called.
Yeah, but when he was Rikishi, he wasn't stereotypical at all. He just came out with too cool and fucking like track pants and a track jacket.
Yeah, but he was meant to be the same character. That's why they brought in Fatu, who was Haku, or that's how he was called. They mentioned they used to be in a tag team called the Head Shrinkers together. It's like, oh god, no! Wasn't that with Captain Lou?
Maybe.
I believe the Head Shrinkers were Captain Lou, because I remember them as a kid. But yeah.
Well, it's not like that's the only time they've done that, where they've taken a guy that had a real stereotypical gimmick and then made him someone cool that didn't. I mean, it's like Papa Shango going to Godfather, same deal.
Yeah, I find it hilarious they did the exact opposite with Rikishi's sons.
Yeah, they did the opposite.
Let's make them not stereotypical and then make them stereotypical to sell. It was like, really?
Yep.
I don't like that. It's like when you have like Asian people out there. I don't like it when they're I don't know if when they're overly Asian. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean they're cartoon cutouts of what an Asian should be.
Kenzo Suzuki.
Yeah, when they're like a cartoon cutout of what an Asian should be.
Like
I mean,
Tensai.
even Kai and Tai back in the day did the whole badly dubbed "indeed" and stuff like that. And it's like, you don't need. That was kind of funny, but it was still a horrible stereotype, and we don't need these stereotypes.
Yeah.
Especially, it's like WWE tries to be realistic nowadays, and I believe we're going to go into that in a future WXR.
How's WXC? Is that a new show?
Possibly, but we're going to go into that in the future. But it's more, they go really realistic with a lot of gimmicks now, and then they completely ruin it by adding stereotypes.
Well, the thing is, with Kai and Tai, I think it also has to do with the time in history that they did that, because for that time, I think it was more accepted, and they went completely over the top with it, which made it hilarious and not as bad as if they actually tried to go, quote, realistic stereotype. Whereas in today's society, if they tried to do something like that, people like us would look at it and be like, no, what are you doing? That's stupid. But back then, I think it was okay. And it has to do with, the time. The society of the time.
See, I completely disagree. Because back then, even I found it to be a ridiculous stereotype. Because at the time we were doing that, we were suddenly now getting Pokemon and the influx of anime and stuff. And Asian heritage and stuff like that was becoming big with teenagers and kids and stuff. And everyone was seeing this movement, and it was becoming huge. That stereotype was more 80s or 70s than it ever was 90s, when you got like Dragon Ball Z on TV.
True.
Which in itself was badly dubbed, but still. Send you
This
to
is
the next dimension. I saw one of wrestlers that say that at one point.
There you go.
Bray Wyatt needs to say that. They need to go more supernatural with him. Have him come out with like fucking voodoo doll or something. Be like, I'm gonna send you to the next dimension.
Yeah. It's like, it makes me sad. Ron Simmons was champion when he was Farouk and stuff, obviously. But the thing that annoys me was when he became world champion, the only way he became world champion because he was leading a group saying, look at us, we're black, we don't like you. If you did that the other way round, that's offensive too, obviously.
Yeah.
But it's still, the way they did it, look, let's just throw every black guy together and just say, look, it's a group of black people. No, I don't like that. Ironically, and I don't give props to these too often, although I have a couple of XGRs, but I'm going to say the most forward-thinking thing I'd seen with tag teams and stuff like that in recent years, or actually in any years, was the Dudley Boys.
Yep.
Because you had a white guy and a black guy teaming up who were meant to be brothers, which means that clearly implied their parents and stuff, they clearly lived in an interracial house, which even today, as I was talking with maybe Richter or maybe it was Simon or both, and like people said, nowadays that's still considered to be in poor taste. That's still considered to be in, ooh, you can't do interracial stuff. Ooh, and it's like, the Dudley Boys did that years ago. That's really fucking forward thinking. I'm giving massive props to the Dudleys. And not once did they come out and say, or they may have done it once, but they didn't come out every week and say, look, I'm white, he's black. Hilarious. They came out and said, we're brothers. And they actually acted like brothers. They were bonded like brothers. They were treated like brothers. That's extremely forward thinking.
Yep. I can agree with that.
And then they had Spike Dudley, who was their Marcus.
Fuck you!
Complete props and a good point ruined by a single joke. Implying Marcus was small. I mean, I did love in ECW, speaking of Spike Dudley, I did like it when they threw him into the crowd and he crowd surfed. That was genius. But still, did you have any closing thoughts, Jimis? Or Jimson?
I think writing another nickname. Okay. Just that I think part of it probably is a result of management. Just their preferences for what they think people want to see on TV or what they want to see on TV. But at the same time, I think it's also a matter of the industry simply being an industry that doesn't attract certain types of people, simply by virtue of either they prefer to be in other sports or other areas, or just that it's something they're not interested in. That might have something to do with it too. And also a lot of things like people, because of the different types of wrestling, people tend to stay in the area with their comfortable type of wrestling. That's why you don't see a lot of guys like Sin Cara coming into the WWE, because we saw what happened when he tried. He couldn't work that style, and he ended up hurting himself all the time because he couldn't do it. Same thing with why a lot of Asian wrestlers don't come over to America, because same deal, they wrestle a very unique style, and it's hard to change up your wrestling style once you've been doing it for a long time. So I think a lot of it is simply by virtue of the inability to work a certain style, or an uncomfortable with the way wrestling is done in certain areas or by certain people. As
Cough,
for the
Sin Cara, cough.
I just said that.
I didn't hear Sin Cara.
Sorry. I'm sorry.
No one did. He didn't speak.
Ah.
Oh.
Did he just gym worse than I do? Jesus Christ.
No, because he didn't gym anything important. Continue.
Fuck you. Anyway. And at the same time with the divas, I think it's just a matter of, some of them are not given a chance to shine the way they should be, but I think that's because there's very limited time that's even given to the divas, and they have a very specific idea of what they want divas to be nowadays, because nowadays, for the most part, with the exception of a few like Natalya and Tamina, they hire for beauty and then teach to wrestle, rather than the other way around. And as a result, most of them are not necessarily that good in the ring, and because they're not good in the ring, they don't get showcased except as valets and things. I think what they need to do is take a lot of these divas, take the Funkadactyls, who they were using right in the first place, take like that, the chick with the red hair, Eva Marie, take a handful of these, and make them valets for guys. Let them do that sort of thing. Because that's what they're good at. Maybe once in a while put them in a battle royal, but let them be valets. Leave the wrestling to people like Natalya, Tamina, AJ, Paige, Summer Rae,
Actually, the Funkadactyls aren't terrible. When they actually let them wrestle, it's like, holy crap, they actually have some talent. But if you don't let them wrestle, or if you make them wrestle within a gimmick, you're not going to see that talent. Like, was it WrestleMania, I think? Yeah, it was WrestleMania. That Battle Royal. I'm sorry, the Funkadactyls actually showed talent. Like, a lot of the divas in that match, and Mole will attest to this, actually showcased their talent. They actually were able to show that, hey, look, I can actually wrestle. Now, there are some that can't, like Eva Marie, but still.
I will say that's a bad example because Mole said most of them showed their talent, but Mole's also constantly said the Funkadactyls can't wrestle for shit.
Yeah, exactly.
They always look really awkward when they do it.
They do because they're trying to wrestle within their gimmick. I think if they actually told them, hey, you know what, screw the gimmick, don't try to incorporate your dance or your booty popping crap, go out there and wrestle, I think we'd be surprised at what they could actually do. I'm not saying they're on the level of like a Natalia or a Paige, but I think we'd be surprised, and I think they're decent.
And possibly, I will also say, just as a final thought, could it also be the perception of what what wrestling fans are like?
Maybe.
Because I think whenever I hear people talk about wrestling, whenever I speak to anyone in the United States or over here and stuff, anyone that watches wrestling, or sorry, I speak to someone that doesn't watch wrestling about wrestling, they're always like, I don't watch wrestling. I'm like, why? I say, isn't it for hicks down south of America who are always racist and stupid and stuff? It's like, that's in itself, that is intolerance right there, because like I showed Jim the other day, there's actually a big statistic about how educated they actually are, but still, people assume that, so they try and book it like it's meant to be for that, and it's like, I don't know if that's the case or not.
Well, I think it's a combination of things. I think it's, as Richter mentioned earlier, the mentality of the management and the fact that since they're old school, not only do they have that mentality, but they also are more the type of people who will hang on to that power and not let anyone else actually make decisions that they don't agree with. Like, I think that might be, again, one of the reasons why Raw and SmackDown can't become what it should be, because Vince and the old people in charge won't allow Triple H to actually do what needs to be done. But then I also think it's a large part of it is the audience. You know, it's because, like you've mentioned multiple times, that if you look at the live audiences, if you look at most of the people that WWE, corporate or whatever, and the WWE in general interact with and use as their data benchmarks, it's going to be the live audiences. And the live audiences, no offense to anyone who's actually gone to see wrestling live, like Andy, because I know for a fact this isn't him, but I'm sorry, a big portion of the live audiences are just mindless fucking sheep that the WWE is programmed. So I don't think it's so much that the WWE is looking at the people and saying this is what the people are. I think it's more along the lines of the WWE saying the people should be what they want them to be, and therefore we're going to book that way, instead of looking at who the people are and booking for who they are.
I could kind of agree with that. I think some of it with the live audience is the fact they do the chants they think they're supposed to because they think it's part of the show. Not because they're stupid or mindless or anything. I mean, I've been to wrestling, like I said, I've been to a shitload of wrestling events, and I'll admit, sometimes I do cheer for faces I don't like just because there's an awesome fucking chant going and you're in the middle of it.
Sure, like, that is that.
I don't want to just be sat in the middle of it like, nope, I don't like this.
I don't like it.
Although I will admit, when I was in England, obviously I'm still there. When I was in one of the wrestling events in England, I should say, and I went to see it. Me and the Chris people went to see it with amazed and wonderfied by one thing within that audience, which is kind of anti what the WWE audience is, which is maybe I'm not saying our country's more forward thinking or anything like that. I'm not implying that at all, because this wasn't a televised one, so it might be some of them as well. We were in the live audience. Cena came out. Boo! Boo! Someone else comes out. Boo! And they were booing all of the heels, all of the faces and all the heels that couldn't wrestle, and were cheering the ones that could. And the one that got the loudest reaction that night was Rey Mysterio. And I'll admit, I on my seat stood the fuck up when Rey Mysterio came out and was like, "Booyaka, booyaka!" And we were doing the 619, 619, and it was fucking awesome because it's Rey Mysterio. He's a legend. But in America, Rey Mysterio is treated more as like a kid's attraction than he is the respect he deserves.
True.
Because look at how old Undertaker is. No, not Undertaker. Look how old Rey Mysterio is, and then look at guys like Undertaker, Triple H, Shawn Michaels. Hell, even the New Age fucking Outlaws were treated with more respect by WWE as a company than Rey Mysterio. And Rey Mysterio's a fucking legend. He's a fucking legend, man.
True.
This is true.
But still, I don't need to go into a rant about how much of a legend he is. Legend.
Well, if and this may sound bad, but I'm going to say it anyway. If history has shown us anything, Rey Mysterio will get his respect after he dies.
Yep. And then suddenly all his DVDs will fly off the shelf and everyone will be his favourite fan ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
I always loved him. No, you didn't.
And then the video game company will make the 619 look like shit.
They'll make it look awesome like they kind of did with Eddie's Frog Splash.
I think Eddie's Frog Splash is the worst one in the game. It looks like shit.
It was great the year he died. That sounds sick. It was great the year he died. It looked great in the game the year upon Eddie Guerrero's demise. That sounds better. But
There you go.
I liked Eddie. I really did like Eddie.
Yeah, I did too.
Ironically, I'll admit I wasn't always a fan of his. He won me over, ironically, in WWE more than he did in some of the other organisations. Because I liked him then. I was like, okay, he's kind of good. But I wasn't like, rallying for him. And then he had that, disqualification match with Edge. Ironically, a Canadian versus a Mexican. And they were like using the ladder, and it wasn't even a ladder match. And they were doing all this fucking shit off the ladder on SmackDown. I was like, holy fuck, this is one of the best matches I've ever fucking seen. And that made me go, yes! And I was for Edge at the beginning of the matchup, but at the end of it, I didn't give a shit who won. I just wanted to chant yes to whoever won, if that makes sense. And it was like a mark-out match where you're like, yes, and rallying behind it.
Eddie was so innovative with that. The one thing that I'll always remember with respect to Eddie Guerrero and ladders is what he did in his, I think it was a ladder match against Rey Mysterio. No one has ever done it before or since, as far as I know, where he fucking pinned Rey with a ladder and Rey just couldn't do anything.
Yep.
I was like, whoa, why did no one ever think to do that before?
Yep.
And he just kind of looked down and be like, bye, and just kind of climbed the ladder.
I will also say, WWE doesn't treat a lot of people who deserve it with respect if they're from different nationalities, unfortunately. It's like, one person I always said that if I felt deserved respect, and I know people snigger at him, was Chavo. I felt Chavo Guerrero deserved a lot of respect. I liked Chavo. In WWE, whenever he came out, people were like, oh, Chavo, piss break, whatever. He left WWE. When he went to TNA, I watched it the first night he went to TNA. He stood in the ring. The entire audience stood the fuck up and clapped while shouting, thank you, Chavo. Thank you, Chavo. And I'm like, holy fuck, they have more respect for the wrestlers than the WWE crowd. What the hell's going on here? But still, intolerance. It's a case of, with the intolerance, like I mentioned, I don't know if we're going to get over it or if we're not, but hopefully the future looks promising. Hopefully we get over it. But one thing we can all agree on, it needs to change.
Yes, it does.
I was your host, Chris, aka The Mole, and the people joining me were Rick, Marcus, and Jim.
And the Queen of Hearts.
And the Queen of Hearts. Although we don't count Canadians as people. So thank you for our talk on intolerance.
Wow.
See, that's funny because it's ironic, not because it's racist. But yes, see ya.